You learned early not to be a burden, not because you were born that way, but because the world around you demanded silence, demanded efficiency. There was a bed, there was food, there was a roof over your head, but there was no lap to crawl into when the thunder shook the windows, no voice that noticed when your eyes darkened just before the tears fell, no arms that reached for you simply because you existed. And so you adapted. You became the easy child, the one teachers praised for being mature beyond your years, the one relatives called no trouble at all. You wore that label like armor, not realizing it was slowly becoming a cage. But here's what no one told you then, what perhaps no one has told you since. What happened to you has a name. When a child doesn't receive consistent love, when there's no presence that responds, no voice that truly sees, the body learns to survive. And survive you did. You became useful. You became correct. You became a harbor for everyone else's storms while your own ship slowly took on water. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet hunger settled in. A hunger you learned to ignore so well that you almost forgot it was there. Almost underscore today. You function. You work. You pay bills. You show up. From the outside, your life looks like a success story. But when your head hits the pillow at night, something stirs. A hollowness that doesn't match the life you've built. A restlessness that has no name. You lie there wondering why achievement feels so empty, why connection feels so exhausting, why peace feels so ... suspicious. Let me be clear, this isn't drama, this isn't ingratitude, this isn't you being too sensitive or never satisfied. This is the logical consequence of growing up in an environment where love was inconsistent, where you learned, without anyone saying the words, that safety meant performance, that belonging meant usefulness, that the only way to matter was to never, ever need. The very strategies that saved you as a child, they're the ones quietly suffocating you now. I want you to hold an image in your mind. Picture a house with a highly sensitive alarm system. The first night you install it, it does its job, it protects you. The second night, it still seems reasonable. But by the third night, by the 10th night, by the 100th night, something shifts. Now the alarm screams at every passing car, every gust of wind, every shadow that moves across the lawn. What once protected you has become a prison of perpetual vigilance. This is what happened inside you. The alarm is the system you built to survive. The hyper-awareness that scans every room for danger. The people-pleasing that smooths every interaction before conflict can arise. The silence that swallows your needs before they can inconvenience anyone. These mechanisms saved the child you were, but they're exhausting the adult you've become. In your body, this shows up as shoulders that never fully relax, even in sleep. As a stomach that burns after days of saying, "I'm fine," when you're anything but. As a throat that tightens when someone asks how you're really doing, because the honest answer feels too dangerous to speak. As nights where sleep won't come because somewhere inside, your system still believes that rest is a luxury you haven't earned. In your daily life, it shows up when you volunteer for 3 tasks so no one will be disappointed. When you apologize for things that aren't your fault. When you convince yourself that wanting to be cared for is asking too much. When you pour yourself empty for everyone else and then wonder why there's nothing left. You've become the person everyone turns to. But here's the question that might sting. Where do you turn when you're the one who's breaking? You learned to function this way, not because something is wrong with you, but because something was missing around you. Without consistent love, a child's mind becomes remarkably creative. It invents strategies to avoid the unbearable. Be strong. Don't need anyone. Please everyone. Be perfect. Don't feel. These weren't flaws, they were innovations. Brilliant adaptations that kept you intact when you were too small to protect yourself any other way. But here's the paradox no one warns you about. Being strong for too long becomes its own kind of abandonment. When you never allow yourself to be weak, to be held, to be seen in your mess, you abandon yourself with devastating elegance. Your calendar stays full, your smile stays fixed, your usefulness remains impeccable, and the quiet hunger, it grows. Because here's a truth that might shake something loose in you. Being useful will never substitute for being seen. You can deliver excellence for decades and still feel invisible. You can solve everyone's problems and still feel unknown. You can be the most reliable person in every room and still feel utterly alone. Because what the child in you needed wasn't another task to complete. It was a pair of eyes that said, "I see you." Not what you do. You. That child is still waiting. And the invitation of this journey we're beginning together. It's not to go back and fix what was broken. We can't do that. It's not to blame anyone that keeps us stuck. It's to finally give that waiting child what they've been hungry for all along. Starting now. Starting with you. Underscore what saved you back then may be hurting you now. Let that sentence settle. Don't rush past it. Because somewhere in those words is the key to understanding why you feel the way you feel, the way you feel, and the doorway to feeling something different. Before we go further into your story, I want you to meet someone. A young man who knew the taste of unlove from the inside, who felt what it means to be too much for the people who should have held him close. His name was Joseph, son of Jacob. His father loved him with a fierce, visible tenderness, the kind that becomes a target. In a house full of brothers, that love didn't create warmth, it created fire. Envy simmered in the corners. Resentment grew like weeds in the silence between meals. And one day, the brothers did what jealousy always threatens to do. They made him disappear. They sold him, like property, like excess cargo. This isn't some distant parable wrapped in ancient dust. This is a boy who looked into the eyes of his own blood and saw the unbearable truth. To them, he was too much, too favored, too visible, too alive, and so they erased him from the family portrait, pocketed silver coins, and went home to watch their father grieve a lie. Joseph was carried to Egypt, a land where the language was foreign, the customs strange, the faces unfamiliar. Everything that had anchored him was ripped away in a single afternoon, and in that tearing, something inside him had to make a choice: collapse or adapt. He adapted. In Egypt, Joseph learned what you might have learned too: survival through usefulness. Wherever he landed, he made himself indispensable. He organized, he solved problems, he earned trust through sheer competence. When he was falsely accused and thrown into prison, another betrayal, another stripping away, he didn't stop. He kept offering what he had. He interpreted dreams. He created order in chaos. He made himself valuable because, perhaps, some part of him still believed that value was the only path to belonging. Years passed. The kind of years that move slowly when no one is waiting for you, when no arms reach, when letters don't come. And then, against all odds, Joseph rose. He became second only to Pharaoh. He managed abundance and famine. He held the power to save nations. From the outside, it looked like the happy ending. The boy who was thrown away became the man who held everything together. But here's what the simple version of this story often misses. When Joseph's brothers finally appeared before him, desperate, hungry, not recognizing the brother they'd discarded, he didn't rush to embrace them. He didn't weep with immediate forgiveness. He tested them. He watched. He asked questions that probed whether they had changed, whether the cruelty that lived in them had softened. And when the emotion became too much, he didn't cry in front of them. He left the room. He found a private place. And there, alone, he let himself break. This is what it looks like when competence doesn't erase memory. when strength doesn't cancel the ache of old wounds. Joseph could rule a nation and still carry the weight of being the boy who was sold. He could provide for the very brothers who betrayed him and still need to protect the heart that remembered everything. He cared for them, and he guarded himself, both things at once. Does that sound familiar? Maybe you've never been sold into slavery, but perhaps you know what it feels like to be treated as excess by people who should have treasured you. Perhaps you've learned, like Joseph, to survive by being indispensable. Perhaps you've risen, achieved, provided, and still found yourself stepping away to cry where no one can see. Joseph's story isn't just ancient history, it's a mirror. And in that mirror, you might just glimpse your own reflection. What repeats, roots. This is how the mind works. It takes experiences, especially the early ones, especially the painful ones, and transforms them into beliefs. Not consciously, not with your permission, but silently, persistently, like water carving grooves into stone. When you grew up without consistent comfort, without arms that reached for you simply because you existed, your mind didn't file that away as my caregivers struggled or the environment was limited. No, your mind made it about you. It whispered conclusions that felt like facts. I only matter when I don't cause trouble. I'm too much. I'm not enough. My needs are a burden. Feeling is dangerous. These beliefs didn't announce themselves. They just became the wallpaper of your inner world, so familiar you stopped noticing they were there. And from these invisible beliefs, strategies emerged. Brilliant, exhausting strategies. Hyper-independence. I'll figure it out myself, because asking for help means risking rejection, because needing someone means giving them the power to disappoint you. So you learned to carry everything alone, even when your arms were shaking, even when your back was breaking. Perfectionism. If I'm flawless, they'll finally see me, because mistakes meant invisibility. Because excellence was the only currency that seemed to buy attention. So you polished every surface, edited every word, and never let anyone see the drafts. People pleasing. I'll keep the peace at any cost. Because conflict meant abandonment. Because your voice felt too expensive to use. So you swallowed your opinions, softened your edges, and made yourself small enough to fit into spaces that were never designed to hold you. These strategies worked. For a while, they kept you safe, kept you connected, or at least kept up the appearance of connection. But the cost. Relationships that drain more than they fill. A tiredness that sleep doesn't touch. The strange inability to receive compliments slide off you. Gifts make you uncomfortable. Help feels like debt. And beneath it all, a body stuck in permanent alert, scanning for threats that may never come but feel perpetually imminent. Researchers who study early emotional neglect have found something that might validate what you already feel in your bones. When consistent care is absent in childhood, the brain builds a map based on vigilance rather than trust. The nervous system learns to expect danger. This isn't a label to carry with shame. It's context. It's an explanation for why peace feels so foreign, why relaxation triggers anxiety, why you can't stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's not that something is wrong with you. It's that something was missing around you, and your brilliant mind did what it had to do to survive. Do you see the echo of Joseph here? He grew into a man of immense capability and responsibility. He ran economies, managed crises, held power that most people only dream of. But underneath all that competence, he carried the memory of being discarded by the very people who should have protected him. His usefulness didn't erase his wound. His success didn't silence the boy who was sold. You might carry something similar. You've grown into someone capable, responsible, reliable, but underneath, There's an echoer quiet knowing that you learned to earn what should have been freely given. The difference between Joseph's story and ours is this: we're not looking for a heroic gesture. We're not waiting for a dramatic confrontation or a tearful reunion. We're looking for something smaller, something more sustainable. We're looking for human boundaries, the kind that let you exist without disappearing, the kind that lets you give without emptying, the kind that honor both your capacity to love others and your desperate need to stop abandoning yourself. That's where we're headed next. Here's the cruel irony no one warned you about. The very things that saved you your responsibility, your competence, your unshakable resilience become prisons when they have no walls. Virtues without boundaries aren't virtues anymore. They're slow acts of self-erasure. Without boundaries, you put yourself last. Always, automatically, as if your own needs were an afterthought scribbled in margins that keep getting smaller. Without boundaries, you confuse love with survival. You stay not because you're cherished, but because leaving feels like death. You give not because it fills you, but because emptiness is all you know when you stop. Without boundaries, every request feels like a demand. Every no feels like betrayal. Every moment of rest feels stolen. What saved you back then is hurting you now. But here's what I need you to understand. Really let sink into your bones. You don't have to choose between being responsible and being cared for. These aren't opposite ends of a scale where one must rise as the other falls. They can coexist. They should coexist. Remember Joseph. He governed an entire nation. He managed abundance and famine, held the fate of millions in his decisions. And still he needed to leave the room to cry. He held power and vulnerability in the same hands. He delivered everything that was asked of him without delivering himself completely. You can do this too. You can give generously without giving yourself away. You can be strong and still need. You can show up for others without abandoning yourself. The question that changes everything is simple. How far do I go for others before I lose myself? Let's make this concrete. Let's hold up the mirror to your daily life. At work, you take on 3 deadlines and say, "I've got it," while your chest tightens. Delegating feels like weakness. Asking for help triggers ancient fear. What if they think I'm incapable? What if they see through me? So you carry it all, alone. Your shoulders a monument to silent struggle. At home, you accept crumbs, because crumbs are what you learned to expect. When someone offers a compliment, suspicion rises before gratitude. When criticism comes, you believe it instantly, as if your mind was waiting for confirmation of your unworthiness. In conflict, you go quiet, not because you have nothing to say, you have volumes, but your body learned long ago that speaking up costs more than silence. That your voice is a luxury you can't afford, that the fragile peace you've built might shatter if you dare to exist too loudly. At night, sleep evades you. Your body refuses to stand down, still scanning for rejection behind every closed door. I want to leave you with 3 questions, not to wound you, but to illuminate. Where did you say I'm fine when your body screamed otherwise? In which relationship do you call your silence peace? What request have you postponed because asking might make you look weak? If any of these land close to home, don't flinch. Don't judge yourself. This isn't evidence of failure. It's information. It's your heart telling you where the boundaries need to be built. And that knowing, that's where healing begins. Now we arrive at the part you've been waiting for, the way forward. But I need to be honest with you. There's no magic here. No single revelation that will dissolve decades of learned survival in an afternoon. What I can offer you is something smaller and, ultimately, more powerful. Tiny steps that slowly retrain your system for a different logic. Less unlove, more presence. Let's begin. First. Name your story without invalidating it. As long as you keep saying it wasn't that bad or other people had it worse, guilt keeps you trapped and the wound stays untended. Comparison is a thief that steals your right to heal. Someone else's broken leg doesn't make your sprained ankle hurt less. So try this. Speak out loud, actually hear your own voice saying it. I grew up without enough holding, without enough listening, that left marks on me, even if no one meant harm. Let the sentence land. Don't rush past it. Don't qualify it. Your body understands when it's finally being acknowledged. You might feel a release. You might feel grief. Both are welcome. Both mean something is shifting. Second. Practice one small, concrete request for care. Those who learned never to bother anyone need to rebuild the muscle of asking. This muscle has atrophied from years of disuse. It will feel awkward at first, like writing with your non-dominant hand. Choose someone reasonably safe, not perfect, just safe enough, and ask for something specific. A 15-minute conversation, help with a task, company for a difficult appointment. Keep it small, keep it concrete, and hold on to this anchor phrase. Asking doesn't make me a burden. Asking reveals that I exist too. Third. Place one small boundary in a relationship that drains you. Without boundaries, childhood repeats itself. The patterns just wear adult clothes. In a space where you always say yes, experiment with a carefully chosen "not right now." Speak with the voice of an adult who takes care of themselves. I want to help, and today I can't. I can deliver this part. The rest I can't guarantee. I need to think about it, and I'll answer tomorrow. Thank you for the invitation. This time I'll pass. I value us, and this way exhausts me. Can we adjust? These sentences might feel foreign in your mouth. Say them anyway. Your nervous system needs to learn that boundaries don't end relationships. They make real ones possible. Fourth. Offer yourself one concrete gesture of care. For those who've always been the caretakers, self-care feels like luxury, like something earned, not given. But it's not luxury. It's foundation. Eat one meal slowly. Go to bed a little earlier. Schedule the appointment you've been postponing for months. Consider starting therapy. And repeat as many times as you need. I also deserve the care I so freely give to others. Notice your breathing afterward. Something may soften. Finally, look at your own history with curiosity, perhaps with professional help. Some wounds run deep enough that they benefit from a therapeutic relationship. A secure bond that helps reorganize the internal maps drawn in childhood. Asking for this kind of help isn't weakness. It's responsibility toward yourself. Here's your anchor phrase for this one. Asking for help is stepping out of the isolation where unlove placed me. Joseph eventually found people he could trust. It took time, it took testing, but he didn't heal alone, and neither will you. One step at a time, one breath at a time. Let's return to Joseph, but this time, let's strip away the Sunday school gloss. Let's see him as he truly was, not a saint with a magical, forgiving heart, but a wounded human navigating impossible terrain. When his brothers stood before him in Egypt, desperate and hungry, Joseph didn't rush into their arms with tears of instant reconciliation. That's the version we wish were true, because it's simpler. The real story is messier, more human, he observed. He tested. He asked probing questions. He created scenarios to see if they had changed, if the cruelty that once lived in them had softened into something safer. And when the weight of it all became unbearable, he didn't weep in front of them. He excused himself, found a private room, and there, away from watching eyes, he let himself break. This is not weakness. This is wisdom wearing the clothes of caution. Underscore Joseph had every reason to withhold forgiveness forever. He also had the power to destroy them with a single command. But he chose neither extreme. He chose something harder, to stay present with his pain while slowly, carefully, testing whether trust could be rebuilt. He provided for them, he saved their lives, and he kept his guard up until he knew it was safe to lower it. He sustained without erasing himself. This is what boundaries look like in practice. Not walls that shut everyone out. Not open doors that let everyone in to take what they want. But gates. Gates that you control. Gates that you control. Gates that open for those who prove themselves safe and close for those who don't. Underscore. You may never reunite with estranged family members. You may never govern a nation or hold the power of life and death over those who wronged you. But you will face moments, countless moments, when old wounds reappear dressed in present circumstances. It happens in a conversation that suddenly triggers a cascade of ancient shame. In a request that feels heavier than it should because it echoes all the times you couldn't say no. In a compliment you can't receive because somewhere inside, a voice insists you don't deserve it. These moments are invitations, not to relive the past, but to respond differently than you once did. Underscore. Here's what Joseph's story whispers to us across the centuries. You are not only what was done to you, you are also what you choose to do with the story you received. His hidden tears remind us that true strength isn't the absence of pain. It's the ability to look at your pain without being destroyed by it, to hold it gently, like something precious and heavy, and still keep walking. Just as Joseph needed to test whether his brothers had changed, you have every right to test the people in your life today, to observe, to ask yourself, is there safe space here for me to exist fully? Can I bring my whole self, or only the parts that are convenient? Setting boundaries doesn't push love away, it pushes away abuse. It interrupts the repetition of unlove that keeps cycling through generations, through relationships, through your own tired heart. Boundaries are not rejection. They are the way you finally stop rejecting yourself. Remember the alarm system we talked about at the beginning? The one that protected you the first night but eventually started screaming at every passing breeze. Let's return to that image now, because something important is shifting. When you begin to set boundaries, even tiny ones, when you practice asking for what you need, when you offer yourself gestures of genuine care, something remarkable happens inside. It's as if you're reaching into the control panel of that oversensitive alarm and gently adjusting its settings. The alarm doesn't disappear. You don't want it to. Protection still matters, but it stops firing at every shadow. It learns to distinguish between real threats and false alarms, between the past that hurt you and the present that might be safe. Underscore. This is what healing looks like. Not the dramatic before and after of movie montages, but a slow, patient recalibration. You remain responsible, but less hostage to responsibility. You keep your competence but stop paying for it with your silence. You continue caring for others but finally allow yourself to be cared for too. The fierce independence softens into something more sustainable. The perfectionism loosens its grip. The people-pleasing transforms into genuine connection, where you show up not to earn love, but because you freely choose to give it. Joseph learned this too. He didn't stop being capable or generous. He didn't build walls so high that no one could reach him, but he stopped offering himself on a platter to people who hadn't proven they could be trusted with his heart. He recalibrated. He found the balance between openness and protection. Underscore. And here, now, I want to give you the core truth of everything we've explored together. Hold it close. Return to it when you forget. Let it become an anchor in the storms that will still come. When a child is not loved consistently, they learn strategies to survive the absence of affection. They become strong too strong. They stop needing anyone, nor convince themselves they don't. They please everyone around them. They chase perfection. They learn to stop feeling because feeling hurts too much. These strategies saved that child. They were brilliant adaptations to impossible circumstances. They deserve respect, even gratitude, for what they accomplished. But in adulthood, these same strategies begin extracting a heavy toll. Relationships become imbalanced. The body carries tension that never releases. Work becomes a place of performance rather than purpose. Joy feels suspicious. Rest feels dangerous. Love feels like something to earn rather than receive. The path forward isn't to shame yourself for these patterns. It's to understand them, to see them for what they are, survival mechanisms that outlived their usefulness. And then, slowly, gently, to expose yourself to safer bonds, to test whether the world has room for you to exist without constant performance, to discover that some people will stay even when you're not perfect, that some love doesn't require payment. This is how you release the logic of unlove. This is how you build a more dignified, more peaceful way of relating to yourself and others. One recalibration at a time, one boundary at a time, one breath at a time. We've traveled a long way together, you and I, through the landscape of quiet hunger and survival strategies, through Joseph's story and your own, through the alarm systems that saved us and the boundaries that can free us. Now, as we close, let me gather the threads that can guide you forward. These are the phrases worth keeping, the anchors for when the fog rolls in and you forget what you've learned. What saved you back then may be hurting you now. You learned to function this way. That was your body's intelligence, not your failure. The invitation now is to take one step at a time toward a way of functioning that includes you. Crumbs of love don't have to be your standard. Being too strong for too long is its own form of self-abandonment. You don't have to choose between responsibility and care. Both can exist together. Joseph carried all of this. The boy who was sold learned to survive through usefulness, through excellence, through never needing what wasn't offered. And the man he became had to slowly, painfully, learn that he could hold power and tears in the same hands, that providing for others didn't mean erasing himself, that the past would always be part of him, but it didn't have to write his future. His story doesn't end with a neat resolution. It ends with him still navigating, still holding the tension between what was done to him and who he chose to become. Your story is the same, unfinished, unfolding, full of possibility. So here's my invitation for the next 24 hours. Just one small gesture, not a revolutionary single step. Write down the sentence that acknowledges your story. Say it out loud if you can. I grew up without enough holding, without enough listening. That left marks, and I'm learning to tend to them now. Or make one simple request to someone you trust. Something small and specific. Let yourself be seen in your need, even if it terrifies you. Or place one tiny boundary in a relationship that drains you. A gentle "not today." Let me think about it. This way isn't working for me. Or schedule the appointment you've been postponing. The doctor, the therapist, the conversation you've been avoiding with yourself. One gesture, that's all. And after you do it, notice your breathing. Something may shift, something may soften. Let me leave you with this. The same truth we started with, repeated because it matters. When a child is not loved consistently, they learn strategies to survive the absence of affection. When you recover a human rhythm, when you expose yourself to safer bonds, when you build boundaries with trembling hands, the map inside begins to redraw itself. If this journey has stirred intense pain, please seek professional support. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. You are not a walking mistake. You are not broken beyond repair. You are someone who did the best they could with the story they received. And now you get to participate, with dignity and intention, in the rebuilding of your own story. The quiet hunger doesn't have to stay quiet forever. You are allowed to be fed.